Okay, so uh, I want to mention that as a paralegal, you will do a lot of filing. What I mean by that is all your clients will have a file. We talked about confidentiality and all that stuff, so you know what I mean by file. Um, you want to have certain folders because when the attorney hands you over things or the client's sending you, I don't know, they're sending you tax, forms, they're sending you doctor receipts, whatever they're sending you, you have to file it. And you're probably the one that's going to organize the file too. And most of our files now are done on the computer. Okay. It doesn't matter if it's on a computer or if your attorney's, maybe old school and you have a filing cabinet, it's all done the same. You really do want to have a good filing system. Once you master that, you'll be able to find anything. If you don't master that, you're going to be scrambling, taking 10, 20 minutes out of your day to find a document. You don't want to do that. Your time is precious. Okay. You might have 8 hours of a work day, but I absolutely tell you, it goes by so fast. And if you're going to take 20, 30 minutes to just find a file, right, when you could have been organized and have nice subfolders and everything looks good and you know where everything's at, you want to be organized. Are attorneys organized? Not always. They're not always organized. I think they're probably maybe like the most unorganized. They really are. They depend on you for all of that information. They'll even email you and say, oh, I need to have Mr. Smith's RFPs. Okay. Right. So you're the one going into the file. So you might as well make the files, friendly for you as well as anybody in the office. Okay. Let's just say your attorney retires and there's some cases that they're going to give over. They're going to transfer these cases over to the new attorney. Well, the new attorney has to be up to date on everything. So they're going to go into the files and find everything they need. And hopefully they'll be able to find it because it's such a nice, neat file. Okay. Now, if we see on the slide here, pleadings, discovery, and motions. Okay. Those are three types of things that should be either a subheader, I'm sorry, a subfolder or a main folder, depending on what we're talking about. So I want to get you guys a list. Um, I have a list here that's very beneficial for paralegals, and I try to hand it out so that any paralegals that come in the office will file all the same, is kind of what we like. So let's take a look at this. Before I even start this, I'm going to show you guys a filing system. And please, this is not in your book, so if you can take a screenshot, write it down. Okay. So, of course, you want a main folder. What do you think the main folder would have on it? Well, usually it has the last name, especially if it's online, even though we're doing, confidentiality, you can still put, so the, oh, main folder, sorry. I was typing up something today. I needed it to be white. Now I need to do black. There you go. Okay. So we have a main folder for every single client. Okay. Main folder. So what is that main folder usually titled? Well, it's usually titled the client's name. If not, if there's a case number, maybe your law firm only wants case numbers on there. Okay. Or maybe your law firm just wants to call it, you know, um, I don't know, the legacy file if they're suing Legacy Hospital. You have to know how their file system works so that you can put the main folder. Usually, we like to file it under the plaintiff's name and the defendant's name. Okay. So we can do, let's do, I'm thinking of a name that's not popular. We'll do Flores versus Legacy Health. Okay. That's my main folder. Now just picture it. That's the main folder that the file, you're going to click on that main folder. And then underneath that folder, all the subfolders. So if your attorney needs a pleading, if your attorney needs a document from discovery, you just click, click, click. This is how easy we want to make it. So this is the main file. I do want you to title it whatever, like I said, you have to look at how the attorney wants it done. And then I'm going to have my subfolders. Okay. Subfolders that they're going to click on. And here we use Dropbox. You might not use Dropbox, you might use a different system, but we usually have subfolders. Now here they go. For every case, everyone, your subfolder should be titled Pleadings. Okay, first folder should be Pleadings. What's going to go in there? Complaints, motions, petitions, and other court filings. That is what we put in the Pleadings folder. Okay, you don't need all of this. I'm just telling you what we put in there. I'm going to put that a different color. You don't need that. I'm just giving you an idea of what's going to go in there. Okay, so my first subfolder is pleadings. And whenever I get a complaint and it's stamped and finalized, I'm going to put that in in the pleadings folder. If there's any motions, put them in the pleadings folder. This is why when you go to the pleadings folder, you'll start seeing. Okay, so we'll have pleadings. And then second folder you should always have is going to be discovery, which we're going to talk about today. We'll talk about discovery and pleadings today. Your discovery folder is probably going to be the biggest folder because remember, we're discovering everything that the defendant is going to give us or everything we want from the defendant. It all goes in there. Plus, everything that we give to the defendant from us, we're going to put into the discovery folder too. It's probably the biggest one. So discovery is going to have interrogatories. We call them ROGs. These are questions. Depositions. And, okay, it's going to have, I think we should put that too. So we're going to have request for production of documents. And request for admissions. Okay. Everything's going to go in there that has to do with interrogatories, depositions, RFPs, and RFAs. Okay, that's what we put in this file. Okay, so we definitely need a pleadings file. We definitely need a discovery file. And a third file you absolutely need for every client is a correspondence file. We need a correspondence file. That just means communications between the attorney and client. Remember, some of these are confidential. Communications between your attorney and opposing counsel. Any emails that go back and forth and all of that good stuff, just in case you ever have to, you have a new attorney that comes in and they want to know what kind of emails were sent. They go into the correspondence folder. Okay. So this is the emails, any letters that were between opposing counsel or client and your attorney, and of course, internal memos, because most law firms have a head attorney, and maybe they were exchanging information, the head attorney and your attorney. You want to put those here too. So correspondence is very important. Um, that will be correspondence is our third file folder. Okay, file folder number 4 should be evidence and exhibits. Okay. Um, this is usually where we put exhibits that our client's going to give us. So if we have opposing counsel asking us for taxes for the last 3 years, maybe they're asking us for their cover letter or I'm sorry, their resume. Maybe they're asking us for medical bills, things like that. Well, that's going to go into our exhibits. So we're eventually going to pull the exhibits out and put them into discovery once we put them in the right form. Okay. So evidence and exhibits is usually photos. If you're working on the criminal side, it's usually the officer's body cam and dash cams. That will go there. And other exhibits. So if you look at this, it's so organized. It's a system that I actually like because I just feel like it's something that everyone can do. And everyone in the law firm can go to it and know exactly what folders they're going into. Okay, next one is research. Anything that your attorney or even you, legal research that you've done for this particular case, right? Cases on point, case law, and statutes, if you're using statutes for this case. Legal research meaning if you're on Lexis and you find a case on point, you're going to download it and then put it into your research folder. Anything that the attorney does that they want you, it goes in research. Okay, so you're not searching for everything on the database. It's all right here and organized. All right, let's move on to our next one. Accounting. There should be an accounting folder. What is that? Well, that's just everything like invoices that come in from your client. Maybe they have an invoice for weekly. Maybe they pay weekly. Um, we want everything there. We want bills, we want invoices, things that they've paid. We want the retainer agreements in here, which all attorneys should have. Yeah. And expense reports. Sometimes you have to go to Staples and you have to have 500, you know, pieces of exhibits printed out because the other attorney wants them actually paper files. So the expense reports go here too. What does that mean? Your attorney may have an expense report that you're going to fill out and put dates and then, save your receipt to it and they'll reimburse you. Um, or anything that's used outside of the office for clients. We usually put it here, including receipts. You always want to, you know, nowadays you can't just save a receipt because what happens, it usually gets, faded, right? So it's a good idea to get your receipt sent to your email. And then what do? You download it and put it into the accounting file if ever needed, right? So that's invoices, retainer agreements, and expense reports, and anything with finances. Yeah. Okay. Number seven folder should be drafts. Work in progress. Maybe you're working on a certain draft of a letter, opinion letter, and you only have the draft of it, so you don't lose it. You can save it in the files too, or maybe the attorney's working on drafts and they want you to save it, and they can go back to this folder and click on it whenever they need it, okay? Work in progress, version, I did that wrong. Work in progress. Versions of documents, Um, remember when you save the drafts, everyone, you don't want to save them in PDF form because sometimes attorneys don't have the app or the capability of turning a PDF into a Word. So you always want to save them in Word form for the attorney. So they're not asking you, "Oh, can you make this in Word form for me?" Because that's your job too, by the way. So don't give them PDFs there. Keep it in Word form. It's easier for them to click on it and start working on it, okay? But when it comes to opposing counsel, you always want to give them PDFs because you don't want your work being changed. Last folder, everyone, court rulings, or court orders, and court rulings. This is judges' decisions on the case and any final orders from the judge or the court. Okay. All right. So those are the 8 folders that I suggest that you guys have for each client. It just makes your job so much easier. The attorneys like this.